Hey there, guys, and a big welcome back to the Blaze TV podcast. It's Ed Kimberley and Stu Coles. And our guest on this edition is new Coventry Blaze defenseman, Mike Kennedy. Mike, big welcome to the Blaze organization. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Ed. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to hopping the pond and heading over to England.
Yeah, no, we're really looking forward to having you. And I hope you're looking forward to a little bit of a trip down memory lane for the next 20 minutes or so, because you've had a pretty interesting career up to now and playing for some very prestigious schools, if you don't mind me saying so. I mean, starting your career at Northfield Mount Herman, I mean, that is a very swanky place to go and get educated and play some hockey. How did life take you there?
So actually, Northfield's not too far from my home. It's like 40 minute drive north. And actually, the high school in my local town, they don't have a hockey team. So I was playing for travel teams, and a couple of my other teammates on this travel team were looking to go to boarding schools and prep schools. And so I found myself applying to a few of them, and I got into Northfield, and I got to go there my freshman year. I repeated my freshman year, so I did actually five years of high school. But that's how I started off. Funny enough, actually, the rink at Northfield, as swanky and prestigious as a school it is, that's it's a rink with only two walls. The long
Yes.
sides just have fence and tarp on it, and some people look at that and they might wince and cringe, but as you get to play there, you really learn to really appreciate cold days when visiting teams come, because the start of the game they're a bit stiff, and we were ready to go.
That said, though, if I remember rightly, they're building a new rink there, and the old barn's going to be turned into basketball courts or something like that, if I remember right.
Yes, there is talks of a new rink. I saw some of the plans, and then it'll truly be a swanky hockey school.
For sure. But I mean, we were talking just before we hit record here, just about being something that is more than just a hockey club, something that's more of a community, something that's that that little bit extra. And that school to me seems that way. It has roots in 1879. I think that was when it was founded. A lot of prestige, a lot of history. Going there, playing hockey there, studying there. Did it feel that it was just that little bit different to, I guess, everywhere else?
At Northfield.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. I thought one of the things that stood out to me is in travel games and teams you play, and you play for the championship and you play for each other, and that while that's always going to be present in the locker room, when you're at a home game or you're going to class and you have the teachers, the students, asking like big game this weekend. We gotta beat up on Westminster or Avon or whoever it is we're playing. It definitely adds a little bit more oomph to your stride, and it's a good feeling to know you have a little bit more to play for on top of playing for each other within the locker room.
Yeah, I understand that. And as well, for a couple of the years that you were there, you were either an assistant captain and in your senior year, you're also captain as well. That must have been a proud feeling.
Absolutely. Our freshman year, we didn't have the hottest start record wise. I think we just had about 4 wins or so. We actually didn't get to finish the season. Both of our goalies got injured. We tried playing one game with an empty net. It was a failed attempt. We lost. I think it was 17-3 was the final score. But we and a group of guys really bought in and said, we need to turn this around. And we had a new coach our sophomore year, and we just bought into the idea of just outworking the hardest worker. That's what we believed in. That was our tenet, and that being able to wear a letter for that team, I wore it with a lot of pride. And the big thing was making sure being the hardest worker, first one in, last one out, and carrying on that mentality that we had at the very beginning of our transformation over the couple of years while I was there.
And I think everybody remembers, special years with it through their career. I mean, even just as a commentator, there are some years doing this for Coventry that stick out in my mind. And I stumbled upon an article that said that when you were captain in your senior year, Northfield Mount Herman had its best record over the season in its history, which, if true, must have been an incredible thing to kind of lead over.
Uh, yeah, I would say that the big thing, it really was my junior and senior year was when we saw a big record change. Uh,
Mhm.
there's three playoff brackets within prep school. There's small school, large school, which are kind of like consolation playoffs, and then there's the Elite Eight, and that's the top eight teams get to play in that. Our junior year, we were on track to make this Elite Eight that frankly we weren't predicted to be even close to getting a sniff at, and we fell short of just we choked. The last three games we lost. We just needed to win one of them, and we fell just short. And so our senior year, I recall it was our last game of the season. We were playing Hoosac at RPI's rink, the college rink in New York, and we just needed to win. And I remember it was about like 3-1 or 4-1 going into 2 minutes left in the third period, and you could feel it on the bench. You could really like we did it. Like we turned it around. Like look at us. Like we're going to the dance in a couple weeks. And so the record was definitely huge looking back, but I think the big thing was getting to the Elite Eight and proving ourselves worthy of being a hockey school. And that was sweet.
And in some ways, that sounds like it completed the journey for you in high school hockey.
Absolutely. And like even looking back, not to be one of those people that harps on the glory days a little bit too much about their high school days, but there's a group of guys that we still get together a good amount, and every once in a while we'll reminisce and be like, what we did there was pretty cool and pretty special. And so yeah, it was it was great to like you said, complete the journey.
For sure. What's also pretty interesting is, and the more guys that we've spoke to doing this over the years, the more that we learn about, I don't know, high school hockey, the more that we learn about collegiate hockey, junior hockey north of the border, whatever it may be. Um, things always stand out as pretty interesting because, while you're playing high school hockey, you're also playing AAA junior at the same time. So you kind of being put into two different pots. What's that experience like?
Oh yeah, so you have the fall hockey season. When is that what you're referring to the AAA?
Yeah,
Is
yeah. So I mean, you were with the River Rats, you were with Boston Little
yes.
Bruins, so a whole
Um,
different ball game.
absolutely. So that's yeah, that's a great point. So I had three teammates on my junior year of high school. We had three teammates on that um the Little Bruins, was it? And we'd have talk in the locker room about whose team's gonna be good this year, who's gonna come out hot. And we'd be going on the line, we'd be like, oh, Saint Sebastian's, you know, Nobles, all these historically great high schools, and then NMH would get brought up, and crickets and some laughs was what we would get. And so that was what was always kind of fun about it is you became friends with your fall team, and but at the same time it was like come the real season we got some bragging rights on the table. And so that was really what it was like, because you don't really get to practice with those guys. You just play Friday and Saturday and sometimes Sunday, but
Sure.
during the week spend your time at your high school team, which kind of makes for an interesting dynamic. Is they do have, if you make nationals, you circle back after your high school season and you play with those guys who you haven't seen for I don't know how many months, and you play with
Yeah,
them in
yeah.
April.
And I guess that would shift the dynamic a little bit. Correct me if I'm wrong here. The high school stuff's probably a little bit more serious, but if in AAA you then make the nationals, all of a sudden you get dialed in very, very quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so if you make nationals, I know guys would, after their high school season would end, you get together and you would like get a week of practice in or so, and you really just kind of almost like cramming for a final. You try to jam all these things back in together, and then you go and play teams that have probably been playing for the whole year.
Oh, there you go. Stu, I'm going to hand the baton to you, sir, if you don't mind.
Yeah, and after your collective high school and AAA exploits, you eventually ended up going down the NCAA route and going to Princeton. But you got drafted to the Quebec League in juniors over in Canada. At what point did you sort of have that sort of thought process of like NCAA is the right one for me, knowing that the queue potentially was on the table?
I would say when I went to boarding school, that was kind of um an academic move, and as much as it was a hockey move by all means, but that was I'd say that's when I solidified like I want to play college hockey. Prior to that, even when I was just starting to play the game and learning how to skate, my older cousin, who's a big role model in on and off the rink, he played at University of Massachusetts. They're about 13 or 14 minutes right by my house. So I'd grow up going to those games and I was like, I want to play college hockey. This is something special. And he would always tell me about you got to do well in school. You have to get good grades so you can leave the door open for any schools that come your way. So I did get drafted. I think it was after my freshman year of high school or so. But I'd say that college was always kind of where I was locked in at.
Yeah, and there is obviously a process in the states where you sort of like you commit to the various schools and you know, particularly in Division One, you get interest, you see a few schools. You know, how I mean, we've already spoken to sort of for people there, but why Princeton? What was it that sort of attracted you to that school?
So I guess there's a handful of reasons. I could give the cliche one is that their academics are very prestigious, and it's a school that frankly I would have no business getting into without playing the game of hockey. But the reality is too, while I was going to accept the offer prior to this incident, one thing that I found myself just like, wow, this is going to be special is I was just got the offer. We were watching the Princeton play a game against Colgate. At this time and date, Colgate wasn't the strongest team that year. Princeton was supposed to come out and give them the work. It was supposed to, Princeton was the favorite by a lot. I was sitting with a couple of guys that were healthy scratches, some injured guys, and about two rows over, there was a bunch of the Colgate scratches and injured guys. And Princeton, as the game went on, he kept talking to the guys, and they were great. And the Princeton actually lost. It was a big upset, and Princeton didn't play their best game. They had some guys who weren't too sharp, and you hear stories about guys that aren't in the lineup, wishing ill on their own teammates, which is you never want to hear that. But I remember sitting in the stands after Princeton lost, and I looked at the guys that I had been talking to, and they were genuinely very upset. They were mad because the logo on their chest had lost, and I looked over to Colgate, and they were also upset because they knew that they probably weren't going to get a crack at the lineup because their team had just won, and that would again that maybe wasn't the deciding factor. I probably would have gone if it was different, but that's when I realized that like this is a special locker room, and that's a special place, and that was where I got really really excited about going to Princeton.
So as much about the people as it is the place, which I think is a really important message to kind of drive home. If you're going to be in an environment that works for you, then that's the one to drive home. You before you got to Princeton, though, you had a year in the BCHL, which is um, for people listening in geographically, not very close to Massachusetts, I think is a fair understatement. And it was in Nanaimo over on Vancouver Island, well and truly in Western Canada. What was it like being there for a year?
It was great. No, you're absolutely right. That's about as far as away you can get from Massachusetts if you stay on the continent. But it was that was awesome. I spoke earlier before this call about how I feel like I'm going to a community, and then I talked about how it feels like I was at a community at Northfield, and it definitely felt like I was at a community in Princeton. But in Nanaimo, it was the first team where I felt like I was in a community, and it was also not a school environment. Um, yeah, so many members of the community would help out for the team. I had amazing billets. I had amazing volunteers that I became friends with down the line, and that was a great feeling. It wasn't a big city like Vancouver, but it was just right where you felt like you were playing for the town and the city of Nanaimo, and as well as you were playing for each other, and that was great. Like I remember a week before playoffs, unfortunately, or it was a week after our first series. Unfortunately, COVID hit. We didn't get to complete the series, but we were going up against Cowichan later down the line. We had just swept Alberni. I remember I was at a Tim Hortons. just doing a little bit of like some reading, and I had like two different people come up to me because I was wearing an Nanaimo jacket, and they said, "You got to beat Cowichan." Like I can't stand those guys, and it's like they were like a 30-minute ride away, and so you really felt a strong sense of local pride, and that was sweet.
It's something that you certainly get here in the UK with hockey. Like people get very passionate and tribalistic about their teams, but we don't have it in junior sports. And that's something that like you don't necessarily get that sort of level of attachment for 17, 18-year olds, 19-year-old kids playing sort of college or sort of junior things. So it's something that I've always found particularly fascinating, that you do get communities that rally round a team of 18, 19-year-olds that really push for them.
Yeah, no, that was cool. Like in the s- in the States, it's a little bit different.
Mm,
There's the USHL, which is, that's probably the top junior league, but I'd say the general attitude towards juniors is like it's not college.
mm,
And so when I went to Canada to play in junior, I kind of had a similar mindset. And like you said, when they had
mm,
such pride around
mm,
these 18, 19-year olds like myself, it was a shocker, and
mm,
it was also a great feeling.
mm,
Like being able to like go to schools, we'd go to like middle schools and stuff and do a lot of
mm,
like good community events and have a positive impact.
mm.
That was something new to me. I never had experienced something like that.
It's almost as if they really like ice hockey in Canada. It's
I'd say so.
um so then, oh, you say COVID hit, so that sort of brought a somewhat sad and abrupt end to the season there in Nanaimo. What happened next for you? Because obviously you're a hockey player playing away from home with billets. COVID's hit. There was the Canadian US border, it was shut. Like, what happened to you? How did you sort of navigate your way through to that sort of summer?
Yeah, that was so yeah, COVID hit. It was a little bit chaotic right away, a lot of uncertainty, some talks of the borders being shut down. So that was the big thing, was just getting across as quick as possible. Once I got home, I actually locked myself. I had a little bit of a cough and I wasn't sure what that deal was. So I remember barricading myself upstairs in my room for quite a bit. But you had to get creative right after that because all the rinks were shut down. I had to scavenge together all my equipment that I had from past Christmases and birthdays of asking for workout gear, and times my mom would go out, and my mom and dad would go out and buy me some just random stuff that I thought was great for my development, like bands and weighted vests and all that noise. And so I had to pull together some workouts for sure. And actually a rink opened up. I think it was about an hour and a half away from my house, in Stanford, Connecticut, and that would be kind of like the hot spot, where guys would get together and skate. We would get dressed in the parking lot for at the beginning, and felt like we were kids again, being home dressers. But that was how it got started. Freshman year at Princeton was also a COVID year. We didn't have a season, so the first half we I was at my house, and then halfway through we got word of from some sophomores that they were going to pool together some guys and train together in Boston. There was a rink close by, and so that's how we did it. And we made the most of it. We really did. We were able to train and skate, and also feel like we were competing for a common goal. That was something that I thought was a little bit weird. After I was done playing Princeton and kind of unsure of what I was going to do next, is going to the gym and skating and training. It just feels a little different. Like you're not doing it for I don't know. There's no set championship that you have in your head. And so that was nice getting into that freshman year, getting to be together and really feel it, that we were going for a common goal.
So were you sort of at school remotely at Princeton that sort of first year, and then sort of then trying to work out? Was there an opportunity to play some hockey elsewhere, like at juniors or AAA or something, and still be doing your freshman year at Princeton? Or did you just decide there was just too much going on? Like, I'll keep it nice and simple, do my classes, and wait to see what happens hockey wise.
So there was the opportunity. You could either take a gap year, like Nick Seitz actually did that, and some other guys did that as well, or you, at the time when the handful of us enrolled, there was still potential that there was going to be a season. It was just going to start in December or January, and at the time it was, I think, like 17 guys that were on board for starting the school year in the fall, and so that was kind of my mindset was that there was still a chance for a season, and so I stayed on board. Quite frankly, also I was a little bit worried about if I took a gap year, are they going to still let me get into this school? Because well, wasn't sure if they're going to say nope, sorry, you got to go. But so that was yeah.
And overall, like, what are your sort of thoughts or your memories of your time at Princeton? You know, it's a competitive team, some good memories there.
Absolutely. Yes. I thought over the 4 years, the competition within the locker room only got stronger. Um, it was a great 4 years. I really did make a band of brothers there, and um, it flew by. Put it simply. We yeah.
Well, that sort of band of brothers is getting a little bit of a reboot in the next couple of months, and I'll let Ed sort of ask the questions there.
Yeah, I was going to say there seems to be two little pockets of alumni building. We've got the Princeton boys, and then from D3 we've got the Adrian College boys as well. And just to kind of, I guess, link what Stu was talking about in terms of your collegiate hockey and coming over to the UK. If I remember right, and actually I'll tell this anecdote because we spoke to Nick Seitz a couple of weeks ago, and when I was trying to organize the interview, reached out and did the whole, hey, here's who I am, here's what we're trying to do, getting on the podcast and whatnot. And he was, yep, no, that sounds great. Let's do that. Locked in a date, locked in a time, and just chat. He's like, hey, so how are you spending the rest of the day? And he's like, well, actually, it's graduation. And I was like, well, what the heck are you doing talking to me for? Like, go do that for goodness sake. Were you guys at the same ceremony? Did you get to catch up with Nick? Because at that point you were both headed to the UK and headed to the Blaze.
Absolutely. So was this on Tuesday at the
Yeah.
yeah, so we all got together. That was the Tuesday was our official day. It was kind of a weird stretch of graduation ceremonies. I guess they had three. It was like we
Wow.
graduated 3 times in a week. But Tuesday was like the real where we take the thing and we move it to the other side and it becomes official and you get the actual piece of paper. But yeah, we all got together. We all sat in the same row, and all of our teammates in our senior class, and so yeah, we all joined up and we did that. And then later that evening, we all got together and kind of just soaked in the last couple of hours we had before departure.
For sure. So tell us a little bit about Nick, because we spoke to Nick, we've seen his tape and whatnot. How would you describe him to Blaze fans?
I would say he's multifaceted to say the least. I mean, I don't know many people that are as interesting as Nick Seitz. He can often keep to himself. He can come off a little bit quiet, but as you pry him open, he's the cliche onion. He has a lot of layers to him. Like he grew up in New York City. He doesn't you talk to him, I don't think he really gives off much of a New York, nothing wrong with New York personality, just he just doesn't. It's not, you wouldn't predict that out of him. And then you learn a little bit more about him. You find out that he spent a year in Ecuador, living in
Wow.
in and teaching. Yeah, this was not this past summer, but the summer before. Yeah, he was living in Ecuador. Um, he went to Panama for a couple weeks on a school trip. He What else is there? I actually, not to try to put him on the spot here on this call, but he was even notorious for taking a couple extra classes that he thought were good for his own academic curiosity. He's a guy who really took advantage of every resource at Princeton, but never was the guy to complain about it. He's never the person that, is doing all this work and is always like I'm doing so much. Like you would never know because you always show up to the ring such a bright smile on his face, happy to see everyone, and then you find out that he's a workhorse on and off the ice, and he's a pleasure to be around. Like, you talk about a team guy. He is the type of person that when you're getting dressed, you see him in the locker room, he's got your back, you got his back, and he wants the best for everyone, whether it's the same position as you or whatever. He's a good team guy.
Yeah, he came. I mean, he kept the Ecuador thing quiet, but no, he came across really well. And I think you're right when he said because obviously you see that he grew up in New York. There, New York's a kind of a big place, but growing up in the heart of New York, I think you're right. Didn't kind of come across as having that personality type, if you like. But as a defenseman as well, you must have had to cover him in practice a few times in some drills. I mean, he's a heck of a dynamic skater too. He can really
Oh
whiz about the
man.
place.
Yeah, he's the best player to go against in one-on-ones for your development, but he's the worst player to go against in one-on-ones for your ego. That's for sure. Holy smokes! Like we would do these like straight line any one-on-one really, but there was this one drill in particular where the D would be on the red line, you'd pass it to the forward, get up to the blue line, and play the one-on-one, and you'd be lucky if you stayed with him to like the blue line or something. He was a breakaway machine in that drill. We used to call him or our coach called him. It's kind of not to embarrass him, but mix sites like McDavid, but sites because he has. I've
Uh,
seen. I'm sure you've seen some clips of him getting the wind up, and no one stands a chance when he's at top speed. He's a fast guy, but he's a strong guy. He's hard to. We
yeah.
do some corner drills too, and he's sturdy. Yeah.
Well, we're absolutely we're definitely looking forward to having him, and yeah, his tapes are very exciting. I think maybe a bit of a sleeper signing across the league, but I don't think he will be for long. But let's talk, I guess let's just pivot back to you because this is all about Mike Kennedy. We got to the point in your career where you turn in pro, and rather than maybe doing what a lot of guys do in your position of trying to maybe try out for an American League team, go and bust it in the coast for a little while, you decided to come east, hop over the pond to the Elite League and to the Coventry Blaze. And why the Elite League? Why that move? Why Coventry?
I think there's a lot of drawing factors to this, and I think it's going to be on the rise shortly. I can't imagine um, that it stays that way, particularly where guys traditionally go to the American leagues right out of college. One is I've heard a lot of things about the competitive environment amongst the teams. I've heard
Mhm.
that every team's within a handful of hours drive away from each other. There's only 10 teams. Things like that nature is really appealing to to I guess what I'm looking for out of a year, and that's a team environment going for a championship season, and so that's what's the most appealing to me.
Fair enough. And speaking about reuniting with old colleagues, when that phone rang and it was Kevin Moore, I guess your old boss, if you like, from back in the Princeton days. Um, Tell us about that conversation, actually. And did that, I mean, obviously influence the decision, but what was it about that conversation that you had that influenced the decision to come over here?
Yeah, um I'd say the big thing is just Kevin Moore's he's a very honest guy, and for better or worse, he'll tell you what's what for better or worse. That's one thing, and two is I think his philosophy on the game of hockey is unique and very like it's very special and rare. And I don't know if it should be as rare as it is, but when I got a chance to play for him in Princeton is I got the energy that hockey is a means of, or this is all about character development, and our
Mhm.
lives are about becoming better fathers, better husbands, better people in the world, and hockey is another means of doing so. And that was a message that I took away from my freshman year, sophomore year, him being around, and something that I've tried to hold on to tight, and I'm really excited to play for him next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds very, very much like you guys align. When I started speaking to Kevin, I was lucky to, speak to him a few times, including his first day. I think you've summed him up really well. For those who don't know him yet, that haven't met him yet, there's something unique about him in the world of hockey that we should definitely cherish. And I guess finally from me, Mike, I mean, you got signed super early in the summer. Like you've got all of the rest of June, you've got July and most of August ahead of you. That must be a really nice feeling to know where you're going to spend a year, to have a little bit of freedom. Sure, you're going to be working out and skating and kind of going over tape or whatnot, but having having that feeling, having that security in the back pocket, something to look forward to, must be so cool.
It absolutely is. Like I mentioned, it's a little bit difficult to continue a training routine and not so much follow it, but go to the gym excited every day and go to the rink in the summer excited every day, not knowing where you're going to play. I've never been good at showcases growing up playing for clipboards. It's never just I always kind of crumble, to be honest, whenever it's playing for my own specific making it to the next level or anything. It's always been about playing for a team. I find a lot of comfort in that. And so it's been a lot easier falling into a routine this summer, knowing that I know where I'm going. And you're absolutely right. It's been a luxury to have signed this early in the summer and kind of just mentally be be ready for the year with Coventry and not, trying to prepare for an unknown team that could be anywhere.
Yeah, no, awesome. And I guess finally, we will wrap this up here. What are your final words on the pod to the Blaze fans ahead of the upcoming season?
I'm I'm just excited to be a part of Coventry, the Blaze, and be a part of Coventry, England. I'm really looking forward to really being a part of the community in Coventry and making the town proud and doing my best.
Yeah, Michael, I'm more looking forward to having you over here for sure. And thanks again, buddy, for just spending a little bit of time talking to Stu and I on this whole thing. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you, Stu. I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to, tell a little bit about myself and hear a little bit more about you guys.
No, that's awesome. Guys, thank you so much again for tuning into one of these editions of the Blaze TV podcast. And listen, I think we've only scratched the surface on the episodes of the guys that we've got signed. So plenty more of these to come. Until next time, bye for now.